Hello. Welcome to the Sarah Lacco Inspired Vida Show. I'm so stoked that you're here. My name is Sarah Lacco, and I've always been fascinated about people's stories and their hardships and how they've overcome those hardships coming out on the other side, turning their pain into their power and sometimes even their passion. We get to interview the true underdogs, get to meet those people and pick their brains. So I'm super excited for today's guest. Every time we talk, I just realize how more and more alike we are, and I'm totally into it. But today our sponsor is the Badass Backpacking Babes. So you might have missed out at the time this comes out, the pre-sale, but it's still available, teaching women how to start backpacking, getting on those trails, and immersing ourselves in the wilderness. We get to take back our power, our wild, our confidence, and our badass-ness. So you can sign up for that. We also have retreats and just started doing personal retreats. It's so exciting. Anyways, I'm gonna stop nerding out about that, but make sure you're jumping in as soon as possible so you can take advantage of any deals that we have going. The links to that will be at the bottom of the details below. So now to our guest. I'm very excited about it. So friend, please introduce, there we go, words. Introduce yourself and tell us what you do.
Hi, my name's Connie Morgan. I am where should I start? I'm I'm a human being. I'm a woman, I'm a mom, I'm a student of not only college, but I feel I'm a student of life. And I'm a neon tube bender. I'm a neon sign maker.
Heck yeah. And I love student of life. So cool. And your business is super cool too. I've been following you and I really dig your signs.
Well, thank you.
They're bright and vibrant and all the things. So, and also we'll get to more of your business later on in the show, which I'm very excited about. But do tell us, like, what did childhood look like for you? What was growing up?
My childhood was I was the youngest of 5 kids. My oldest brother's 14 years older than I am. My parents, by the time I was born, they were almost in their 40s, and it was kind of like being raised by grandparents. Very old-fashioned, very much a heavy-handed disciplinary household. My dad was a school teacher. My mom was a librarian. My dad was big into the outdoors. He was a hiker, a fisherman. He was at one point a government trapper, which I know nobody hears of that anymore. It's very rare. So he's the one that garnered my love for the outdoors. I would spend weeks with him up in the mountains, just the two of us, hiking, fishing, reading books, just hanging out. By the time I was a teenager, all of my siblings were grown and gone out of the household. So it was kind of like being an only child with my parents. And I always kind of laughed because at that point they had they could solely focus on me. And it was rough sometimes. Being raised like that. My dad and mom just had very specific things they wanted and didn't want in their household. And being a kid of the 80s and 90s, it was hard to curtail myself. I would get in trouble a lot. I always kind of have thought of myself as the black sheep of my family because I'm not like anybody else in our family. And unfortunately, I have 4 siblings and really only have communication with one of them just because of differences that people can't get over. So yeah, my childhood it was pretty good. Despite all of the discipline and all of that, my favorite times were always in the outdoors with my dad. And that's why I like to be outside as much as possible.
I love that. And again, can just relate to you more and more. It's pretty cool.
Awesome.
So tell us, like, right before, like, we all have hardships in life, right? Like there's different hardships, but right before like your biggest hardship, where you like knew things had to change, take us back to right before that hardship. Like where were you physically? Where were you mentally? What did that look like?
Right before the biggest hardship, the biggest turning point in my life, I was married. I have 2 sons. My husband at the time had lost his job, and kind of that's when I lost my shit. Because of how he was a sociopath, in my opinion, not diagnosed, but after doing a lot of research of my own, kind of came to the conclusion that that's the type of person he was. Those type of people can really drive you crazy. And I was not a nice person. I was very short-tempered, especially with my kids. After doing a lot of therapy, I know now that I just didn't have the tools on how to deal with all the stress that I was going through. My ex-husband had a lot of mental instability, a lot of mental issues. And he checked out. And oh man, I was working hard. I was running a lot. Just to get out of the house, to clear my head, to get my anxiety out of my body. And I was kind of a mental mess. I was not happy. I was in a point where when he would leave, he still has a marijuana addiction, which I know a lot of people laugh at, but an addiction is an addiction. I've had a lot of people tell me you can't be addicted to marijuana, and I'm just like, you can be addicted to anything. It doesn't really, if it becomes a problem in your life, it's an addiction. And he would leave the house to drive to Colorado. And when he would leave at that point, I've admitted this to people, so I can admit it on here, that I would hope for him to die in an accident, because I was so over the relationship and the marriage and the manipulation and all of the strife that we were under, that that felt easier than getting the courage up to leave him. And that's kind of where I was at. And it was a really, really dark, very dark, heavy place to be in. And I was pretty miserable. And throughout the course of my marriage, I didn't share a lot of my hardships that were going on. And there were a lot. I was really good at laughing them off and, using self-deprecating humor to put off what was going on and make it seem like it wasn't what it was. And I didn't want to share what was going on because I felt humiliated. My parents, my family, you don't get divorced. You just power through. You just stick it out. And so those kinds of things kept me from sharing what was going on. And I was a real mess because I didn't share with many people the extent to what was going on in our house. And yeah, that's where I was at.
Yeah, absolutely. And too, I mean, so many people can relate to that. Like when you're surviving and you're having these like really inner struggles, and we just keep it in, and we don't talk to other people, and we only tell a little piece of the story, and then try to smooth it over. And so, I mean, a lot of people, including myself, can relate to that. And it's hard, it's lonely, you feel stuck and all the things. And I'm sure, like, you feeling about, your now ex-husband, for wanting him to get in a car accident and die, like, that shows like how stuck you were, right? And it shows too, like, and tell me if I'm wrong, but just feeling as though there's no other way out. Like,
Oh,
there's
absolutely.
yeah. So when people are at that like desperate point, you feel like there's no solution, there's no way out. You're so stuck, you're so alone, and you don't even know how the hell to get yourself out of some of the places that you're in. Takes a lot of work, and that's too, like, why we have this show to talk about these things.
Right.
So tell me, like, right, like, what was your low point, and that where you knew things like needed to change? Because I'm sorry, let me back up. I have ADHD. So how long were you in that relationship, one, and how long was it not good? Like, how long were you struggling in that relationship for?
So I was in the relationship for 22 years. That's the entire time we were together. That's not the entirety of our marriage, but oh boy, looking back on it, and when I've talked about it since the ending of it, I would say I would say I was probably about 80% miserable for those years.
Mm-hmm.
And what kept me stuck in that was, number one, some sort of, I call it now generational trauma, being stuck in this expectation of my family that I should stay, I should work it out, figure it out. This is who I chose. I'm stuck forever. Yeah, I was really, really stuck in that. And then feeling like, what am I going to do? I don't know how to survive on my own. I've been with this person since I was 21 years old. I don't know how to do this by myself. I felt like I wasn't going to survive. I was going to have to move back home with my mom. At the same time as things were crumbling, my dad passed away. And that was really difficult. It was, I almost didn't I didn't get to mourn my dad passing because I was mourning my marriage falling apart. It was really tumultuous time.
And surviving through it, like,
Yeah.
as you're surviving through something, like, you can't deal with grief, you can't deal with other emotions, like, you are literally just like trying to survive through things. Would you agree that for you yourself?
Oh, yes. Yeah. I was just trying, I was hanging on to everything just to survive. Yeah. And it was the saddest part to me of all of it was my kids having to go through all of it as well and seeing it,
Right. So tell us now, with my ADHD, I actually remember question I was going to ask, which doesn't always happen, I just like to say.
Right.
So tell us, like, what was your low point? Where did you know like things needed to change?
Yeah. So my low point, I would say I knew that I wasn't going to have the courage to leave him. So he left. He at the time was on unemployment. And as soon as his unemployment ran out, he left. And when the day that he left, he said, I'll be back. And I just shook my head and I said, I don't think you can ever come back. That coming back, nothing's going to be the same. And he got in his truck and we were all hugging him and crying, the boys, and he left, and the boys went to school and I went to work, and I came home that day, and the boys got home from school. My son had a recital at school for his band, I think he was in 7th grade at the time. And I had, kind of begged his dad to stay, at least stay for his recital, and he wouldn't stay. And going to that alone, because we went everywhere together, I was like, wow, I'm on my own now. And we came home and I sat down at the kitchen table and I told the boys, I might cry when I say this, but
do it.
I looked at them and I told them that I'm going to sit here when I'm done with work every day, and I'm going to stare out that window and I'm going to cry. And you guys are going to have to make your own dinner and entertain yourselves while I figure what I'm going to do, while I figure it out. And they would just hug me and they would come in and they would just ask if I was okay. And that was my low point, was just sitting at that table every day, trying to keep my shit together while I went to work and get through the day and just come home and try to figure it out. And that was, that was my low point.
Well, and I love too how you were just so honest with your children to be like, I'm not okay right now. This is what it's going to look like. Like, basically you're saying to your children, like, I'm going to be healing. It's not about you. It's about me, like, trying to go through this. And a lot of, like, kudos to you, because a lot of times, like, as parents, we just internalize things and we don't talk about them and we don't have conversations with them. And our kids are always smarter and are more in tune with us than we think they are. So when you're able to have a conversation and to say, like, hey, I'm not doing okay, I'm working through it, and then for them to then come and embrace you, I mean, what a really difficult thing for you guys to go through, but like also that is so beautiful for them to come over, for you, like, for one, for you to share that with them, and then for them to embrace you and you guys to embrace each other. What a beautiful thing, and a growth process and healing process for all of you.
Definitely.
It's beautiful. And so once you were going through that healing process, and where was your turning point? Where did you say, okay, things now have to change, we have to start evolving, we have to start leveling up through this? What was that? Like, where was that, okay, that turning point, that big turning point for you guys to start with that?
So it took me a while to figure it out. I went through some struggles. I look back on it and I realize now that I ended up kind of abandoning my children even after their dad left, because I had to figure it out, and I struggled with drinking, with staying out late. Just, I don't know. It feels so cliche to say it out loud, but it was just like, I needed to freak out. I needed to freak out and see what that felt like, to move through it, I think I had to do it to get to the other side. And I would say about a year after their dad and I got divorced, I met my best friend, who's my best friend now. And he asked me if, at the time I cleaned houses, and I was kind of like in this like panic, like, I have to keep cleaning houses. I'm never going to be able to do anything else because this is how I make money. And he asked me if I wanted to keep doing that. And I said, well, no, I don't want to clean houses forever. It's just a means to an end for me right now. And he said, well, have you ever thought about college? And I said, well, yeah, I've always wanted to go to college, but I can't now. Like, how am I going to do that? And he's like, well, let's go to Casper College and talk to some people about it. And he held my hand and passed me off to this woman there at Casper College, who's a friend of mine. And she held my hand through the process of enrolling in school. And that was kind of the turning point for me, that I could see that I could do other things and I could have a future. And it would take me a while to get there, but being in school for me is my happy place. I love being in school. I adore Casper College. The teachers there are amazing, and that enrolling myself in school and feeling some hope for my own future was my turning point.
Love that. And sometimes it just takes someone on the outside to be like, hey, let's take a look at your life really quick for a second. And how do you want it to look? And do you want it to look like this with the path you're going on? Or do you want it to look different? Sometimes we're just so narrow in our comfort zone and in our thinking that, it's like, the horse with the blinders on, right? You just keep moving forward. But when someone can open those blinders for you and kind of show you, then you just get a total different perspective, like, of your life and the things that you want in and out of your life, and things, for your children too. You get those deeper whys. So that's so cool that he did that for you. And it's amazing how people come in our lives like at different points and are such angels. And sometimes, like, you are still friends with him, but sometimes there's different people like in our life through different seasons, and they can help us go through different things. So I really love that. And I love that you're going to school.
Me too.
That you were like, I can't do it. And then you're like, well, actually, maybe I can. And for him to hold your hand through that process.
And
go ahead.
I want to say that he also was the person that he and I would hang out quite a bit. And, I was still in that party mode. And I remember sitting with him in his truck one night, and he's like, don't you need to be at home? You have kids at home. And that was the one point where I looked at him and I started crying, and I said, I know I need to be at home, but I'm scared. I'm scared to be the only person they have.
Yeah.
He was totally right. That's exactly where I needed to be at. And eventually I got there. It was, and I credit him for just pointing that out, like saying, this is all fun and everything. And I understand that you want to be out here, but man, you got kids at home that really need their mom right now. And so I always tell him, thank you for that.
Yeah. Well, and too, like, sometimes we're just running away from ourselves.
Yes.
Running away from what we need to deal with. I mean, we've all done that at one time or another, and we've all done it in different ways as well. And like you said, like addictions and stuff like that, like, that is a form of running away from something that you aren't letting yourself deal with, because dealing with those things is scary and it's hard and it's uncomfortable, and you have guilt and shame and just so many different things. But once you start to work through those things, it's hard, but it's also really, there's a lot of light at the end of that.
Yes.
So what helped you along the way? I know you talked about, like, your friend had helped you, someone at Casper College kind of helped you hold your hand, but what were like other different things that were helping you along your way of this path of wanting more for yourself and more for your children?
That would be my counselor. Candace is her name. She is my lifeline. She actually, right after the boy's dad left, my oldest son and I got into a really bad fight, and to the point where we ripped a door off of the hinges. It was bad. He was angry. I was angry. She came to the house. It was like emergent. I was like, I need you here. I need somebody here. And she came and she calmed us down, and she made us take lots of deep breaths. And she's been by our side ever since. She sees my kids. She sees me all of us pretty regularly. And we do this thing called deconstruction, and it's just kind of I'm just breaking myself down piece by piece and figuring out aspects of myself. I've come to figure out that my oldest son and I were in a competition for who was the biggest victim in all of this. That was huge. That was a big, shameful, man. When that came out, I just was like, holy cow, I can't believe I've been in a competition with my son for victim, who, of course, he's the biggest victim of this. He's the kid, but Candace, she's been huge. And just all of the hard work that I put into myself of going through this and writing in my journal and breaking things down for myself to come to a better place where I'm not angry when I don't emotionally lash out at my kids. When I speak to them calmly. And this is all just kind of, it's only been 5 years since their dad left. So all of this is pretty new. Behavior pattern changing has probably been the biggest tool that I've been using to help myself and help my kids. And putting myself out, being vulnerable, being able to be vulnerable. That's
yeah. Vulnerability is huge, right? And you even doing this show,
yes.
You guys, like, talk about vulnerability, right? People share their stories. Like, that is not easy, to talk about different things in your life. So this is just another form of your vulnerability, and
yes,
super beautiful.
Well, thank you.
Amazing. Well, and I love how you brought up like the victim, right? Like, a lot of us sometimes, like, in life, like, we are playing victim, and all these things are happening to us and not for us, and all these things are against us, not with us. And when we play victim, we are not able to be a warrior. We're not able to rise above, because we're playing this role, the story that we told ourselves, that keep us from leveling up, that keep us from growing and wanting more in our life, because we're too busy, in that role of victim. And so it's amazing and beautiful that you guys saw that and then were able to start working on it. Because once you knew that you guys were playing victim, did you notice that there was a big shift too?
Yeah, there was a big shift between my oldest son and I, for sure. He actually, it came to be this year, and Candace, my counselor, was a huge helper in all of this. My oldest son is currently at military school. He just was setbacks and bad behavior and things that were going on. And in the midst of all of this, we discovered, of me making the decision to him there, we discovered the victim identity, I guess you could call it. And yeah, I remember we sat in the car, and after that appointment we had together with Candace and cried. I apologized to him. I said, I had no idea that I was doing that. He apologized. He didn't know either. it just, man, it just helped clear the air. And even though he was upset with me for sending him to military school, he actually, when he arrived at school and he knew that I wasn't going to let him come back home with the behavior that he was displaying, and the way he was treating me, he just looked at himself and said, well, mom's not letting me come back home, so I'm just going to make the best of it here. And he has blown my mind, the way he has reacted to this school. It's not fun. It's not easy. Ripped him away from all of his friends. You know, he's getting his GED. He's not going to be in high school anymore. But that turning point with not allowing us to immerse ourselves in victimhood anymore really helped us both break out. It released a huge load off of my shoulders. I had no idea. I mean, till you start, like, when you admit it to yourself and you look and you're like, wow, I have to change the way I talk. I have to change the way I relate to people. I have to change the way I think about myself in the world. The victimhood, that's an addiction. It's an addiction. And he and I both had it. And I think now we're on a much better plane with each other, and it feels good.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Because also too, like when you're able to recognize that and you know that, then you're able to deal with that. And then
Yes.
you're like, wow. And like, I love how you said the way you talk and all the different things that helps us, you know, play that role, have that story, that inner story. These are all things that really, like, once you start to change those things and be aware of those things, it makes all the difference. And also too, like operating from that place, like there are things in our past that helped us survive our past. Then, you know, we get into further in life and life is different, our situation is different, but we still use those survival tactics that we had used previously that did help us. But we use them in life now and they don't help us and they hurt us, and we go deeper in it and we're not in that place that we used to be anymore. But once you can start to recognize your old survival tactics, I mean, even as a child, once you're able to recognize those and you go, you know what, I'm not that little kid anymore that, you know, went through this and had to survive that. So then we're able to really, again, grow within. So, gosh, I love all of this. Thank you so much for sharing all this. Yeah. So tell us, like, what successes have you had and accomplished, you know, from your hardships? Because sometimes, like, from our hardships, you know, it was hard, it sucked at times, and it was really difficult. But from all of that hardship and from all of those, you know, from that pain, we can grow a lot. You know, we can, you know, want more for our lives. We can have tremendous success. So what does that look like for you? What have you experienced with that?
I would say for me personally, my biggest success has been reshaping my relationship with my kids. Because if you asked them, if you had a conversation with them, they would tell you that I was not a nice person before their dad left. And that's the image that they had of me. And we're working really hard. It's little by little, but working on changing my relationship with them. And like you had mentioned before, being honest. I'm probably too honest with my kids by fault, but my parents were those old-fashioned parents. They weren't honest. They kept everything, you know, I called it revealing their hand when they had to. And I have learned to make a balance of keeping things to myself because I'm still their mom. I'm not their best friend. That's, you know, and just reshaping that relationship with them was the absolute most important thing for me on a personal level. On another level would be when I went to college, getting my first 4.0. I never got a 4.0 when I was in high school. I graduated high school with a 2.89 grade average. And I honestly, I blew my own mind because I did not think I could do that well in school. And I was in math classes. Math is what kept me from going to college because I am not a math person. And I was starting out at the bottom, 900 math. Like, I'm like, this is it, we're doing this. And I had a really great math teacher, and she just helped me through it. And I was in the math lab every day. I kind of made a joke that my new boyfriend was the math lab because we saw each other every day. And yeah, getting my first 4.0 was just a huge boost for my confidence in myself, that man, I can get good grades. Like that's, that had always been a thing for me. Like, man, I know that I'm smart. I know, but then over time it became, I'm not smart because I can't do well in this. And it, the self-talk of, well, my grades prove that I'm not smart. I don't, but I think, and I'm glad that I went to college when I'm older, because I have that perspective of life as well. I'm not still tied up in high school and what was going on then. And yeah, getting a 4.0. I ran a successful cleaning business, that and then opening up the current business that I have now. Those have all been huge successes for me.
Yeah, absolutely. So many successes, personal successes and career successes and school successes. So that's awesome. Well, and two, like, that limiting belief that you had told yourself previously with like, you couldn't go back to school, that you were older, all the different things that we have with that self-talk, those limiting beliefs. But the best gift we can give ourselves is the thing that we want, but we're scared of. Once you start to face that limiting belief and show yourself that it's just a bunch of bullshit that you've told yourself, and you bust through those limiting beliefs, it is so empowering. And your self-confidence from that is just like, whoa, I can do this. And again, that story that I told myself that I couldn't was completely off. And I can have the things that I want, and I can have better for myself. So kudos to you for going straight into those limiting beliefs, and kudos to the people, the listeners, keep going for your limiting beliefs and show yourself and empower yourself, and just lean into that fear, because it is scary as hell, but it's so worth it. And you really get to see something within yourself that you wouldn't have seen had you not given yourself that gift of leaning in and going for it. So I would love, we've come to our wrap-up question, and I always love to ask this one. So based off your hardships and your successes, how do you think we can do better? Maybe do better as an individual, or do better as a society, do better as a community? Based off what you learn, how do you think we can do better?
I think one thing that or many things that you could do as an individual is to don't ever think that you're done growing. We're never going to be a finished product when we leave this planet. Like, we're not, just keep striving for things. I want to stay in school till the day I die. I want to just keep learning. Like, don't tell yourself that it's over. Don't limit yourself by, don't listen to other people when they tell you that, you can't do this, or they put doubt in your mind. You can do that for yourself. You can put all the doubt in your mind. You don't need to listen to other people. I can do that for myself. I just need to hear the positives. Like, I got the doubt covered. Like, if I can say, as a community, I just, when Casper has been an interesting community for me to live in. I will say that I've lived a lot of different places in my adult life, and Casper is a community. It's an interesting community, but it takes care of people. Casper comes together for its community members. And I feel Casper, I feel the universe moved me to Casper for a reason. The universe moved me here to prepare me for the hardship I was going to go through. That's how that's how I look at it. And just being a community of people that looks out for each other and doesn't let people fail just because they're going through something hard and difficult, and don't turn your back on people that are struggling. Even if you see them, especially if people are struggling with addictions and relationships and hardships with their business or whatever it is, it's just try to be a support, try to be a guiding light, try to be a bright spot, if nothing else. Just, just be that. Don't be negative.
Yeah, be a kind human.
Yeah.
Like, we're all dealing with something, and that looks different for each person. So just being kind, I mean, makes all the difference, really.
It really does.
And I love your advice to us about how we can do better as just continuing to grow. I remember, like, personally, there was one point in my life where I was like, I made it, I'm here, I've arrived, I've come to my my destination. I don't necessarily need to do any more inner growth. I'm here. And I was wrong. Like, very wrong. And the universe was like, oh girl, let me show you something real quick.
Yes.
Let me bring you back to reality. And I was like, wow, I don't have it all together. So yeah, just a student of life, like you talked about, and growing within, and never to stop. I used to work with an older community, and people that retired, and they didn't have that like purpose anymore for themselves, in that older generation. It was, and some people now, right, is their purpose is in their job. And when they didn't have that job, their health would deteriorate. And I just was like, whoa, this is super scary, right? So just continue, whatever that looks like for you, but to continue with your inner purpose and your inner growth. I mean, Connie, that's great advice. Thank you so much for that. And I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you. And thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. Super vulnerable, and there's always something to learn from one another. So I appreciate you sharing that with us today.
You bet. Thank you for having me on here.
Absolutely. So do tell us, how can people connect with you? I will put in the description, the details description, whatever that's called, I don't know. But I'll be able to include the links to your business and to all the things, but just tell us really quick of where we can find you and all that.
Yeah, so I have a page on Facebook. It's just it's Glow Neon Lights on Facebook. And no, on Facebook, sorry, it's Glow Neon Signs. And on Instagram, it's Glow Neon Lights. I don't know why they're different. Don't ask me why. I also have a website. It's www.glowneonlights.com. And yeah, you can check out all my stuff there. I post to my stories a lot. I'm a huge lover of vintage signs, so you'll see a lot of that kind of stuff. And yeah, you can check out my work, and I would appreciate it. I love what I do for a living. I love my neon lights, and I love to share it with people.
Very cool. Absolutely. And you're actually in your, is it your shop?
I am in my shop. My messy shop is right behind me. A lot of projects going on right now.
I can relate. You should see what's going on behind me too. I'm always like, please don't fall light, because it's just going to come crashing. All the stuff.
Right.
Very cool. Yeah. So we'll include because you do custom
I do
orders and whatnot too, as well,
yep.
right?
Yeah, mostly I do commission work. I do repair beer signs. That's a big, huge part of my business is beer signs. Yeah, and I do work for sign companies here in Casper, and I would love to work with more people around the state. And yeah, so you can bring me. I do believe, I'm not speaking out of turn, I'm the only neon sign maker in the state that's operational in Wyoming. So yeah, come on down and come check
Very
it out.
cool.
We're having lots of
That's
things this summer. There's going to be lots of music down here, and art shows and art walks and all sorts of stuff going on this summer. So stay tuned to my social media stuff, and you'll see advertisements for that. So
awesome. Very cool.
yeah.
Well, again, I appreciate you being on here. Go check out her website and her social media platforms. I mean, who doesn't like to see a little bright in their life at times? I'm just saying. Well, thanks so much again. And thank you guys for coming to another episode. I honestly don't even know what number it is. Oh, and when she was talking about Casper, we are in Casper, Wyoming. I don't know where you're watching this episode at, but we're here in Casper, Wyoming, where it is the end of April and we have a blizzard. Okay, a blizzard. I woke up to that and I was like, are you serious right now?
I know.
Fine.
It's our spring. This is our spring, people. It snows here.
Literally. Yeah, I'm from Connecticut and we like we have seasons. Like seasons is a real thing, but in Wyoming it's not.
No. Exactly.
Too funny. Well, thanks so much, you guys. And if you didn't subscribe to this show, what are you doing? Go ahead and subscribe already. And we will talk to you later, but much love, good vibes, and we'll see you later. Bye, you guys. Thanks.